All right, it is the final regular season weekend already in college basketball. Hard to believe, but March Madness is right around the corner. 2 weeks from today, from recording this, we will be in the swing of things on the first Thursday of March Madness. Hopefully, a couple upsets and a couple buzzer beaters in the way already. But a big show here, Joe, breaking down the final week of the regular season. We also got some tickets getting punched this weekend. We got OVC on Saturday night, Big South Sunday, Atlantic Sun Sunday, Missouri Valley Sunday. And already got some conference tournaments underway as well. So a little bit of a new location today, having some technical difficulties. Going to phone in a couple friends as well to talk about some of these games. But Joe, big weekend coming up. Conference tournaments in full swing next week as well. Great time of year.
Yeah, Coyle. I mean, I've beat it like a dead horse. It is the best time of the year. Nothing better than conference tourney week, March Madness. We might have a ticket punched tonight as we're recording because the A-Sun lets Queens, who is still in their D2 transition, if they win tonight as well as North Alabama, because North Alabama is the 1 seed, they will get the auto bid because Queens cannot go to the NCAA tournament. So we could have a ticket punched as soon as around 9:30 p.m. tonight, Thursday, March 6th. Does not get better than March.
That's why we bring you in, Joseph, for fun stats like that. Pretty wild. I had Florida Gulf Coast, and they actually got knocked off by Queens there in the first round. So, as we said, though, big weekend coming up. We got one game Friday to break down. We got 8 on Saturday, including a game I'm calling the Bubble Bowl, and then one on Sunday as well. You want to get to some bracketology, though, real quick? Do a little
I'm at Coyle.
blind
I'm
resume
always
game
some
on who you would
bracketology.
put in the tournament if you had.
Always
All
ready
right.
for some bracketology.
Let me get two teams. We these two. All right. Here's team A. 38 in the net, 38 in Ken Palm, 27 in BPI, 80 or 38 in strength of schedule, 5th in out of conference strength of schedule. Their record is on quad 4, team 9 in the net, 39 in Ken Palm. Our strength of schedule, 181 in out of conference strength of schedule. Are 5 and 9 in quad 1. Came down to one of those two teams to make the tournament, Joe. Who would you go with?
I think I'm going with Team B. I think cut out a little bit, but from what I heard, it sounded like their net was stronger. It sounded like just metrics wise, they're a little bit better than Team A. So I'm going with Team B in that scenario.
Arkansas
Okay.
is Team B. North Carolina,
Okay.
Team A.
I agree with that. Arkansas.
And I feel like you've been on the bandwagon of North Carolina. All right, we'll get into the games now. Friday, we start off in the Big Ten. Number 18, Purdue at 21-9. They travel to Illinois, who's 19-11. 8 o'clock tip on Fox. Illinois projected to win 79-74, so we'll go Illinois minus 4.5, over under 152.5.
I'm going with Illinois here, 77-73. So I'm going to take Illinois plus the 4.5. I am going to go under 152.5. Illinois thought they were dead in the water. I thought they were, a dead team walking. Had a good bounce back against Michigan. They scored, I think, like 1 million points in the second half. But I'm going with Illinois at home here to knock off Purdue, finish strong, and regain some momentum heading into March Madness.
I'm going to go with Illinois as well. I think when they've been at full strength, we've seen how good they can be. It was an impressive victory over Michigan at Michigan on Sunday. First time since like 1956 that an unranked Illinois team went on the road and beat a ranked team by 20 or more. So a butt whooping there from Illinois. When you look at Purdue as well, they're only 1-4 straight up as an away underdog this season. They've been a different team away from home, especially in conference play. So this is a Illinois team that is starting to round back into form. I think that could be a dangerous 8 or 9 seed in the NCAA tournament. I like them to win at home Friday night. Good game there. I think it's going to be entertaining, high scoring as well. Give me Illinois 81. 156. So Illinois is flat and over 150. All right, second game of the week. We go to Friday night as well. A bubble game here. Colorado State at 21-9 travels to Boise State, who's 22-8. You're wearing a Broncos shirt, I believe, right now, Joe. Do you think after we get through the game, do you think they're a team that's going to find their way into the tournament? A 10 o'clock tip on FS1. Boise State projected to win 72-68. So we'll go Boise State minus 3.5, over under 139.5.
Yeah, Coyle, I'm going to go with Boise State here, 74-70. I'll take a minus the 3.5. Love the over in this game. No particular reason. Like I said, I'm terrible with my totals. Had Indiana State today under 157, and that was last night when I took it. It was down to like 152, and I think it went over by 40 points. But I think Boise State, after this win especially, will be able to squeeze into that tournament because, once again, we've talked about it. And it is a product of how good the top of the tournament is, but the bubble is very, very weak. A lot of these power conference teams, you're splitting hairs between UNC has like a 1-10 quad one record. You have Oklahoma and Texas, who you and I have talked about, Coyle, constantly offline, terrible conference records. Texas, I think, stinks. I don't think they should be anywhere near this tournament. I think Boise State, at the end of the day, you're going to look at their body of work, look at their record, and there comes a point in time where I think the committee will even realize, hey, even as the 68th team, as the very last team in the first four, there comes a point in time where you have to reward teams for winning these games. And it's not like the Mountain West is, like the Northeast Conference. Shout out Central Connecticut State moving on after their win last night. But the Mountain West is a pretty solid conference. I think Boise should have enough on their resume to sneak in the tournament.
What about the Mountain West struggles the past kind of few years in the NCAA tournament? I think they did a little bit better last year, but the year before they were abysmal in the tournament. What are your thoughts on that? Should that kind of sway any decision when it comes to the bubble and putting these teams in their kind of previous results in years prior?
They definitely haven't been the best, but I think it's if you're using the year prior as what teams should get in or not, I feel like that's it's a little tough to do that just because look at San Diego State. They lost to UConn in the national title game 2 years ago. San Diego State, thumbs up. San Diego State last year lost to UConn. I think Dutcher said, their head coach, he was like, I think we're 7 and UConn because they've only lost to UConn the past 2 years in the tournament. It really all depends on how the bracket breaks. It really is a game-to-game thing. Some of these Mountain West teams, they've definitely, crapped the bed a couple of times. I think it was 2023 when San Diego State went. It was out of the 5 teams that made it, 4 of them were out within the first 6 games of the tournament. It is tough to say, but like I said, then you see a San Diego State team make a run like that. It really just does depend game to game, year to year. So I wouldn't let that affect how the committee should be putting Mountain West teams in the tournament.
Yeah, I agree. It should be, independent seasons because, you were saying the SEC, because they're doing so well this year, it doesn't mean, next year they should only get 7 teams or something like that. It doesn't make any sense, but that's an argument that a lot of people make. Boise State, stat on them. They've won 5 in a row and 9 of their last 10. They've been playing some elite defense. They've only allowed 62.4 points per game over these last 10 games. So they've been on a roll as of recently on the defensive end. I think the defense will help them win it in this one. This is a must-win game for them. If they lose this, I think they're going to have to win the Mountain West tournament, most likely to make it into the NCAA tournament. But it is a good spot for them at home here. But Colorado State is a tough team in their own right. I'll take them to cover the plus 3.5, but Boise State to win. 70-67 Boise State. So Colorado State plus 3.5, under 139.5 there. All right, we go Saturday now. First game on Saturday, noon tip on Fox in the Big East. Number 6 St. John's at 26-4 travels to number 20 Marquette, who is 22-8. Marquette projected to win 73-70. So Marquette minus 2.5, over under 142.5.
Yeah, I'm going to go Marquette here, 71-70. So I think it'll be pretty close to that line. I think Marquette's just going to squeeze it out. Tough one for them against UConn last night. Caravan finally woke up, hit that deep 3. I'm hoping he's starting to get confidence back a little bit because he has been, I've talked with you a lot, Coyle, off air, just disappointing for a guy who was, supposed to be the man and the leader as a junior this year. But Marquette, I think with Cam Jones, it's senior day up in Milwaukee. I think Marquette's going to get the win here. Very close. St. John's already clinched. I know Pitino is a fantastic coach, a fantastic motivator. I'm not saying anything, against him there, but I think it's tough for a team to get up when you've already won the Big East. You have the 1 seed. You're kind of looking ahead. Hey, we're going to be back in the Garden. We are the 1 seeds, basically hosting the Big East tournament. Like, you're at a mid-major level where you host. St. John's has home court the whole way, and I believe I was listening to a podcast and they said that they're going to count the Big East tournament games. I think they're counting them as home games for teams who play against St. John's, or it'll be a home game for St. John's. So that'll be, big, especially if like a Xavier can bounce and get a win there. But I think Marquette going to get a close one at home, bounce back. I'm big on finishing the season strong, winning on senior night, except Mississippi State. I have a bone to pick with them, but I'm going to go with Marquette here, squeaking this one out.
Yeah, I have the same exact thought process as you, as in terms of like, all right, they already got the outright title. They already got the 1 seed. They have everything clinched up. It reminds me a lot of Auburn and Texas A&M the other night. Like, what did really Auburn have to play for? Texas A&M senior night, a little bit more desperate on a losing streak. They go out there and win. Marquette, they don't want to go into the Big East tournament losing back-to-back games here to UConn and St. John. So I like Marquette as well to get this one at home in this spot. Marquette, 11-0 when they score 80 or more. It's going to be tough to do that against a really good St. John's defense. And St. John's in their own right, they can get up and down and score, but they're not a team that's going to go shot for shot with you. They're going to turn defense into offense, things like that. Marquette, in this regard, I think they want to make this game a track meet. They want to get up and down the floor as much as they can. I like them to win this one. I'm going to go 81-79, so I'll have St. John's just covering there, plus 2.5. Marquette gets to that magic number of 80 and the over of 142.5 hits. All right, let's go to the SEC now. Number 19, Kentucky at 20-10 goes to number 15, Missouri, who's 21-9. Noon tip as well on ESPN. Mizzou projected to win this one 86-79. Was surprised to see the number this big. I'll be surprised if the spread's this big because Mizzou's been struggling the past few games. They're a 7.5-point favorite here, over under 164.5 at home.
Yeah, I'm going with Missouri here, 88-85. So I'll take Kentucky to cover that 7.5, Coyle. I agree with you. I feel like that's, a little bit too big a number. And I'm going to go with the over 164.5. Kentucky, Mizzou, both teams, that like to score here. And I think, kind of the theme of the show, senior day at home. Coyle, you and I talk about it all the time. Kentucky is still, even though they're not going to win the SEC this year, they're one of the premier programs in the conference. People are going to get up, especially because it's senior day. So I'm going to go with Mizzou here at home. Kentucky's still really banged up, and I think that's going to be the big thing. Lamont isn't 100%. So I think that's going to be preventing them from winning, but I still think they'll keep it close. I think 7.5 is a lot for a team that is still as talented as Kentucky.
I'm going to go with Kentucky on the road here, actually, with a bit of a bounce back win. Kentucky's been a frugal team. I think that's an appropriate word to use for them. Like, inconsistent, another good word. Like, they've been really good at times. They've struggled on the road, and then they'll go and win a game that they're not supposed to. They'll win this game at Mizzou as a big dog. I kind of like them in this spot. I think Kentucky, it's always the expectation is always more than like Mizzou. Kentucky can't go into this tournament in the first year under Mark Pope on a losing skid. They got to go out there and kind of win this game. Mizzou has been playing the underdog card a little bit throughout the season. It's kind of caught up to them. But Kentucky has been, as I said, up and down. But when they're on, they're as hot as any team in the country. Mizzou is 13-2 when they hold their opponents to 70 or below. Kentucky, as we know, is an offensive juggernaut. That's kind of their calling card. So Mizzou has to keep this game under that number of 70, and I just don't know if they can contain Kentucky. They've been giving up a lot of points left and right. Last night to Oklahoma, over the weekend to Vanderbilt. They gave up a lot of points to both of those squads. So I think this is a bad matchup for this Missouri team. I like Kentucky to win, get above that 70-point threshold. That's kind of the magic number there for Missouri, and win 85-82 outright here on the road. So Kentucky plus 7.5, over 164.5. All right. Keep it rolling in the SEC as always. Another awesome matchup. But back where we were talking about Auburn at the beginning, not as important for them. More important for Alabama if they want any shot at the 1 seed still. But that's number 7, Bama, who's 23-7, coming off a loss last night at home to Florida. They traveled to number 1, Auburn, who's 27-3. Senior day there for a very, very veteran-laden squad. Interested to see how they come out. 2:30 on ESPN. Auburn projected 90 to 80 wins. So we'll go Auburn minus 9.5, over under 169.5.
Yeah, I'm going with Auburn here, 95 to 89. I'm going to take the over in that game, and I'm going to take Bama plus the 9.5. Coyle, you kind of already said it with Senior Day, but this to me kind of seems like Auburn was like, you know what? A&M, once they kind of got down, you kind of saw they packed it in. They're like, listen, let's get ready for Senior Day, rivalry game. We get to knock Alabama down another peg because I personally think they're kind of out of the 1 seed running unless they make a deep run and or win the SEC tournament. Because especially if they lose this game, they'll be 23-8. I feel like that's a lot of losses for a team trying to, fight for a 1 seed. But that being said, I think Janai Broome is going to have a big game. I think he's officially kind of out of the National Player of the Year running. I think Cooper Flagg has kind of locked that up just because, the past couple of games and, in the loss, Janai, not a great game. But I am going to go with Auburn here, 95-89. I'll take Bama plus 9.5, over 169.5. Tigers get it done in the jungle on Senior Day.
I like Auburn as well at home here. They've been, obviously a dominant team all year at 27-3, but they've been really dominant at home in conference play on the defensive end. They're a team that can beat you in track meets, but when their defense is firing and clicking on all cylinders, I think that's when they're at their best and they have the ability to lock teams up. Only allowing 68.8 points per game at home in SEC play. They're going to have to defend this Bama team. And Bama, I've grown sour on. They're a good team, but I don't think they're a great team. They lose to the top teams that they play, and they haven't really been able to get over that hump this year. Auburn is just a different beast at home. What Florida was able to do and go in there and win, I think that's the most impressive win of the season because that's a really tough environment down there at Auburn. But I like Auburn to take care of business at home on Senior Day, but 9.5 is a big number, so I'm going to take Bama to cover that 9.5. 83-75. So go Bama plus 9.5, under 169.5. All right, we go to the Bubble Bowl on Saturday. 2 teams playing for their tournament lives. Whoever wins this maybe punches their ticket. Whoever loses is going to have to do some damage in the Big Ten tournament. Ohio State at Indiana. Neither team is ranked. 3:45 tip on CBS. Records aren't in front of me right now. I believe Ohio State's 17-13, and Indiana is 18-12. Indiana projected to win this one slightly, 73-72. So go Indiana minus 1.5, over under 144.5.
Yeah, I'm going Indiana here, 71-68 at home. This Ohio State team has just been too inconsistent for me this year. We've talked about it before on the show. They come out and they have a win. They beat Kentucky by 20 earlier in the year, Coyle, when I was down, with you guys in like the CBS Sports Classic. But then they'll, look incompetent at times in Big Ten play. They just are coming off a double overtime game against Nebraska. Now you got to go on the road to an Indiana team who a lot of drama surrounding Mike Woodson, whether he's going to return or not. I know people have been saying he's done, but he hasn't really officially said, he's leaving. If they make the tournament, especially if they go on a little bit of a run, it's going to be real hard to, get rid of him, kind of like Kevin Keats over at NC State, bringing them to a Final Four. Obviously, NC State is in the dumpster this year. But I am going with Indiana at home in Assembly Hall. And I think this Indiana team, after this game, will be a lock, which with the state of this bubble, Cole, you and I were texting, calling Indiana a lock. And if this was their resume in years past, I don't know if you'd be able to say that. But I think they're comfortably in. I think worst case, they'll be playing in Dayton that Tuesday or Wednesday before the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, just when you look at the amount of losses next to Ohio State's name, it's just hard to be convinced that that's a tournament team. It's just, once again, it's another reason for the expansion or lack thereof expansion and why we don't need it. Neither of these teams really should be going to the tournament. Indiana was really high on coming into the year, but they just haven't lived up to their potential. Ohio State was I believe, the ranked team at the beginning of the season as well, and they've been up and down and consistent. But you gotta, at the end of the day, put teams in the field, and it kind of comes down to teams like this. But it also makes for an intriguing and enticing game here on Saturday. Ohio State 15-4 when they score 75 or more, 2-9 when they're held below 75 points. So that's kind of their magic number. When they get over that 75 mark, they usually find a way to win. 2-9 when they're held below 75 is pretty wild. So I think Ohio State actually is going to go to Assembly Hall and make some noise. They had a pretty crazy game the other night in double overtime. Could be a little bit tired of fatigued first half maybe. But I think that they're going to find a way to win this game. Indiana has struggled to close games this year. And Ohio State has kind of just been a little bit more of a feisty team, I think, in my eyes. So I'm going to go Ohio State to win 75-73. So go Ohio State plus 1.5 over 144.5. All right, we go to the SEC now with Ole Miss at 21-9, traveling to the Swamp to play number 5 Florida, 26-4. 6 o'clock tip on the SEC network. Florida projected to win 82-70. So go Florida minus 11.5, over under 152.5. And before you get into that one, Joe, who would your 1 seeds be as of today? And do you buy Florida as a legitimate national title team? Because I think you could argue that they have maybe the 2 most impressive wins of the season at Alabama and at Auburn.
Yeah, excuse me, Beef. I do think the 4-1 seeds are going to be Auburn. I think it's going to be Duke, Houston, and Florida right now. If I had to pick my 4-1 seeds, Houston at the end of the day, I think will get their Big 12 regular season champ. I think that they've done enough, especially, as long as they don't lose in like the first round of the Big 12 tournament. I think that'll be enough to lock up, like that other 1 seed. Because I know, we're talking about at least 2 SEC teams getting a 1 seed. Duke is going to be there as well. But Florida is almost a product of how good Auburn has looked this year and how good Duke has looked, because I think they're going to be a 1 seed, and no one is kind of talking about them as a legit national title contender. Everyone's kind of saying, oh, well, they're the clear 4th best option. This team won at Auburn. This Florida team is very, very good. And it is, like I said, if Auburn wasn't as good, we would be talking about this Florida team, I think, is the best team in the country right now, right up there with Duke and, Houston as well. But I think Florida's going to thump Ole Miss in this game, 85-68. So I'm going to go Florida minus the 11.5. I'm going to go over 152.5. Further getting closer and closer to that 1 seed. Because at the end of the day, if you're looking at Florida, Tennessee, Bama, I think Bama has fallen out of the running. Like I said, I think they would need to have a deep run to surpass those 2 teams. And then if you're looking at Florida or Tennessee, I think Florida has a little bit more on that resume, especially after last night winning, at Bama. At Tennessee losing to Ole Miss. So I think, Florida right now, if I had to pick, would be that 4th 1 seed in the West, I believe it would end up being.
Yeah, I think that they're in the best position right now, too, because those are the 2, I think, most impressive wins of SEC play, going to Auburn and to Bama. I think it's going to depend, which one of those, if Auburn goes to the title game, which team winds up playing them or which team knocks out Auburn, I think could have kind of the upper hand. We're obviously going to see with the seeding as well. But when you talk about how good Florida has been, owns the largest margin of victory in SEC play. So that combines their wins and their losses, but their average margin of victory, 10.3 points per game. So they haven't just been beating teams. They've been beating them pretty handily, and that's in the toughest conference in the country and maybe that we've seen. And we're bringing in McClay for his expert analysis on Ole Miss in Florida. He had Ole Miss money line last night against Tennessee. Nick, do you think Ole Miss or Florida comes out on top on Saturday night?
I think Florida absolutely thumps them. Whatever the spread is, I'm on Florida. As of now, I'm looking at it 11.5. I will take Florida in that. There's no way Ole Miss beats them twice. The last time they played, Ole Miss kind of thumped them in their place. Florida, both these teams coming off a great win, but Florida going in, like you guys have already said, probably the most 2 impressive wins throughout the country right now with Auburn and Alabama, especially yesterday in Alabama. So, yeah, I'm right with you guys on Florida and the points and the over as well.
I like Florida to win, but I'm going to go Ole Miss to cover. I think Ole Miss played really well last night against Tennessee, but they also had some lucky breaks. They had 3 to 4 and ones that they were able to convert. And Florida's just playing at a little bit of a different level right now, but 11.5 is a big number. So I'm going to take Florida to win. I do like the over, though. If it is 152.5, that's probably going to be one of my favorite plays of the week. I think this is a game that definitely goes over. All right, we go to Saturday night. We'll bring McClay back in for the final game on Saturday night in the Big 12, as he is the Cyclones talker, but they're not even on the show this week. We go to the hopefully a good game down in Chapel Hill after the first one was a blowout. But that's Duke at 27-3, number 2 in the country, going to UNC 20-11. 6:30 tip on ESPN. Duke projected to win 83-70 here on the road. Duke minus 12.5, over under 152.5. And Joe, before you pick your poison on this one. Duke's average margin of victory in ACC play, 22.2 points per game. The next closest is Louisville, whose only is 12.4 points per game. So Duke wins basically by an average of 10 more points per game than the second closest team in the ACC. And Duke has also won 6 ACC games in a row, winning those games by 30 points per game. I don't know why, and I was talking about this with Brace the other day, they're not getting nearly enough hype. I know the ACC sucks. I know the ACC's down this year, but he was even saying the other day, like, the Zion team compared to this team would lead SportsCenter, would be the top social media clip every night. And now this Duke team is really not even getting that much love, and they've just been dominating everyone in their path.
And the craziest part about this Duke team, Coyle, if they lose to North Carolina and Clemson and Louisville win, Duke will be the 3 seed in the ACC tournament because they have lost the head-to-head to Clemson. And then, I think the tiebreaker would be record against the next best teams, which Duke only played SMU once, and then they split against North Carolina. So I think they wouldn't have the tiebreaker compared to the other 2 teams. But I do think this Duke team is unbelievable. I'm with you. I feel like they're getting hyped, but not as much as that Zion team. And I'm guessing because with Zion,
Especially
you also need Yeah, no, I do agree. But especially, I'm guessing, Cam Reddish, RJ Barrett had something to do with that as well. But still, I mean, this is a very, very talented Duke team. And maybe it's without Coach K, John Shire still needs to kind of build up that street cred a little bit to get that hype. But I don't really know, Qual. I'm with you. I feel like, there could definitely be a little bit more hype, even though there already is a pretty good amount of it around this Duke team. But I am going to be that guy. I am going to pick North Carolina to win this game, 78-77. I probably won't have the balls to bet the money line on Saturday, even after a couple of beers get flown in me. I'm definitely going to take the 12.5 if that does end up being the spread. Because this is a North Carolina team. It is do or die. Because if they win this game, they can, a win against the number 2 team in the country is massive. I know it would only be a quad 1 win, but that's a win when you're looking at it, on the selection committee. You're like, hey, they beat the probably number 2 overall seed. That win will go a long way on the bubble, especially, with as weak as the bubble has been. And it's felt like so many of these teams just refuse to win and put themselves into the tournament. I think UNC wins this game against Duke. We saw when Duke went to Clemson, that environment was crazy. This is going to be even crazier because of the rivalry. And also, this is just me hoping North Carolina wins so we can kind of keep the relevancy in this rivalry, because UNC has not been what it's been the past couple of years. The biggest moments that they had were when they, spoiled Coach K's retirement. But ever since then, North Carolina and Duke have been on 2 different levels. Duke has been the much better team. And I really hope, because if they don't win this game, Hubert Davis, who knows if he's going to come back or not. And if he gets fired, who knows? They may have to start all over again from square one at UNC. So I do hope they win this game. And I'm going to go with the Tar Heels winning at home. Cooper Flag. This will be the loss that they need, and then you're going to see Duke run through the ACC tournament.
I'm going to take Duke to continue their role. As I said at the beginning, they've won 6 games in a row in the ACC. That's not even including the Illinois win, but the 6 ACC game in a row by 30 points per game. No one's been able to hang with them. Even watching the Wake Forest game the other night, it was close for the first couple of minutes, and then it just kind of looked like they were playing a different sport from there on out. They proved, I think, the last time as well that they can dominate this UNC team. And UNC against top competition this year has really struggled. 1-10 in quad 1 games. They just beat the teams that they're supposed to, but are really struggling against some of these top dogs. And I just think Duke's a mismatch kind of problem with what Cooper Flag can do inside, what the other bigs can do inside. UNC just doesn't really have anything to match up with them. So I think Duke handles North Carolina in this one. As you said, I kind of hope it's a closer game. I really like the over of 152.5. I'm hoping it's closer than this, but I do like Duke to win and cover pretty comfortably, 90-75. So Duke minus 12.5, over 152.5. All right, last 2 games, Big 12 on Saturday night, and then we go to potentially Big 10 championship on Sunday afternoon. But we start on Saturday night with number 3 Houston, 26-4 at Baylor, who's 18-12. 10 o'clock tip on ESPN. Houston projected to win 70-61. So we'll go Houston minus 8.5, over under 130.5.
I'm going to go with Houston here really close, 65-64. I'll take Baylor plus the 8.5 at home. It'll be senior night, last game of the season, big game against Houston. I'm going to go with the under 130.5 here. I think it'll be close to that number, but I'm going to go with the under. We were talking about, kind of questioning motivation factors, with these teams that have already clinched their one seeds, in the regular season titles. However, for Houston, I think their motivation is trying to get a number one seed in the NCAA tournament, because if they drop this game, you can make the argument that they would need to, win the Big 12 tournament in order to get a one seed. And you want to try to get a one seed and avoid, having to play a potentially Duke or Auburn until you get to the Final Four. And especially because for Houston, I forget off the top of my head where the Midwest is going to be this year, like that region. But Auburn will be in the South. You're going to have Duke take the East region. And, Houston, the Midwest would be a lot easier than going either out west or being a 2 seed somewhere in their region. So I think Houston's going to get this one done close. Kelvin Sampson always has his guys playing hard. So I'm going to go with the Houston Cougars winning that point.
I'm going to have Houston winning as well. I'm going to have them covering. I kind of like the desperation angle there from you with Baylor, because Baylor is a team that certainly isn't feeling safe in the tournament right now. But Houston, just in the Big 12, they've been dominant. That only loss was against Texas Tech, who is a potential Final Four type of squad. Baylor 16-5 when they score 70 or more. Houston has held their opponents to under 70 during this 9-game win streak that they have going. They're back to that stranglehold, bully ball type of defense. I think they're a tough matchup for this Baylor squad. So give me Houston to win and cover. I'll go 70-60. Houston minus 8.5 over under 130.5. Excuse me. All right, finish out on Sunday in the Big Ten. Number 17 Michigan at 22-8. At number 8 Michigan State 24-5. Noon tip on ESPN. Michigan State projected to win 76-68. So Michigan State minus 7.5 over under 143.5.
I'm picking Sparty in this one, and I'm going to take in the cover as well. I've lost way too much money betting against Michigan State. So I'm going with Sparty 74, Michigan 64. This game at Michigan State, I am taking them to cover the 7.5. I'm going to go under 143.5. I think it'll be a low-scoring game. Izzo continues to make me a loser picking against him. Every time I think this Michigan State team is outdone, every time I think they're dead, every time I think, even though I think I'm still not sold on them making a deep run, I'm just accepting the fact that they are going to be a second weekend team, definitely fighting for an Elite Eight. I'm not going to say Final Four, because at the end of the day, especially if they get in a region with Auburn or Duke, I don't think they'll be able to win those games. So I'll say the ceiling for this team is Elite Eight, definitely Sweet 16, and I'm kind of just accepting defeat. I think Sparty is going to win this game, and they're probably going to win the Big Ten championship as well. They're just going to go all in and just make me look like a fool. So give me Sparty in this one.
Ben Kurt displeased with your words. He's in the background. He says we're better than Elite Eight.
I don't know what to tell you, pal. I don't. If you play Auburn, I am taking Auburn. That I don't care. If you play Houston, if you play Florida, if you play Duke, I am taking those teams over Sparty. To get to a Final Four.
I love Sparty's defense. I love their rebounding. I think they have good athletes, but at the end of the day, I agree their ceiling still is going to come down to their shooting. And they don't even have to be great shooters. I found this stat earlier. 7-0 when they hit 8 or more threes. Not asking you to hit 12 threes, 15 threes. 8 or more threes, they're 7-0. If they can just simply knock down some shots from the perimeter, they're a tough beat. But I think at the end of the day, that kind of still is going to limit their ceiling. Michigan, though, full fade mode on them. Terrible watch. They've just been a really frustrating team over these past few weeks. I like Michigan State to win on Sunday. Good chance they wrap up the Big Ten tonight, but if they don't, that game has even more meaning to it on Sunday. Give me Michigan State 75-64. Michigan State minus 7.5, under 143.5. That'll wrap it up for the regular season. We'll be back next week to preview all the big conference tournaments. But Joe, anything before we head out?
Lock in. Last regular season weekend of college basketball. Tickets are going to be punched left and right. You're going to wake up in 3 weeks and be like, how did that just go by so quick? So enjoy every moment. lock in, find a mid-major team that you want to root for as a Cinderella team for March Madness. I recommend either UC San Diego, Drake. Those are some obvious ones. Find a team that you love. I like this Liberty team in the CUSA. I think if they get in, they can make a run. Akron out of the MAC, another very, very good mid-major team that could potentially go on a run. So find your favorite Cinderella. Find, these teams you want to root for now, and you think you might have an edge over your friends when you're making brackets, when you're making bets, doing whatever. Best time of year. Enjoy it.